ourselves. But it's a little painful, and then you have to deal with it. But overall, it's to everyone's benefit. I'm bringing this up as a way of understanding what's going to happen. If we're actually going to create or act to create a different economic relationships, these things are going to come up, and we have to be prepared to deal with them. I'll stop there and we can have some discussion.
Is it allowed to go back to your speech or lecture yesterday?
Sure.
The main reason that I went to the conference, in spite of being extremely busy these days, was the title of your lecture. Consciousness is a problem, and consciousness is also the solution. In 1966, okay.
You can look at it.
I'm usually accused of speaking too high, but it seems that I have been more modest at this time. But you understand? Did you understand that the main reason that I came yesterday to your lecture was the title? I didn't know of you. I ordered your book yesterday evening on the internet. I didn't know it was available here. That was the title. Consciousness is the problem, and consciousness is the solution. Because that is a way of saying things that has very much to do with my life. In 1966, 47 years ago, in the summer of 1966, I read two small popular books which totally changed my life. And since 1966, I have been deeply interested and involved in the ecological future of man, because of the extremely problematic relationship of industrial civilization with nature, because of population growth, because of depletion of natural resources, and because of harmful, dangerous impact on the environment. I therefore, in 1966, I was a research librarian at the university library, so I had easy access to scientific literature. I began reading about economics and about demography and about energy and about pollution and so on. But after 2 years, I realized, and that is then the connection to because I realized that we have no energy problem, we have no pollution problem, we have no energy problem. We have a problem of consciousness. And that made me get interested in the long term, in the history of the development of human consciousness from our emancipation from the great apes and the invention of language, the invention of writing, and so on. Now, and 7 years ago, I arranged a conference in the Danish Parliament about oil depletion with Colin Campbell. Since the Industrial Revolution, mankind is living more and more unsustainably. And we are with increasing speed heading towards an ecological mega catastrophe without precedence in the whole of human history. Now, could I speak?
We know already. You're telling us things we already know. What is your question?
Could I speak?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm very fond of being interrupted because people don't like what I say.
No, yes, we do. Because we don't like it. We know it already.
Oh, yeah, we know it already. Yeah. Go ahead.
I cannot know exactly what you know.
We know, but we agree with what we have said so far, do you think?
We have known it since.
No argument. Okay, just continue.
My question to you is, what do you think or feel about the ecological future of man? You haven't spoken much about ecology, the ecology of man.
Ecology of man versus the ecology of the environment? Is that you're trying to draw a distinction there? What do you mean, ecology of man?
survival
Well,
of
the ecology
mankind.
of man or human ecology is, the designation of the subject field, which I would not expect a question about what human ecology or ecology of man is. I mean, it's a subject field which is, well, you know, the general field of ecology of man, that is the ecology concerning the species
Okay.
called Homo sapiens.
Okay, I understand your point. Actually, I could say in one sense, almost everything I'm saying is about the ecology of man. But let me summarize it for you in this way. We're all spiritual beings. We are under the influence of false ego, misunderstanding our identity. We are looking to satisfy our basic needs, our basic urges of being happy, of being loved, and so on. We're looking to satisfy that in a material context, which will not give us the satisfaction that we seek. That satisfaction that we want can only be had in connection with God, who is the supreme spiritual being, because we are spiritual beings. Matter cannot satisfy spirit. Now, the problem that we have with the 1% is because they're trying to satisfy that itch by getting more. They already have too damn much. They can't even use it all, but they still want more. So the lesson there is to learn how to actually find that satisfaction by spiritual activity. And I'm not talking about religion, you have to join my religion or this or that. We're spiritual beings. We need spiritual sustenance. Just like if you take a fish out of water. You can give him all kinds of stuff. Here's $1 million, here's a nice car, you know, what do you want? The fish can't be happy because he's not in his proper environment. So we're like that. We're a fish out of water. We're spiritual beings trying to find that spiritual satisfaction in the material world. So the ecology of man is to find that connection with God. And then finding that connection, one actually becomes so satisfied, so fulfilled, that automatically the need for their material demands diminish to what's absolutely necessary. They're not interested in more. That's ultimately the solution to all of these material problems. We need to have that. Now, in the past, we've had religion. Religion has not given humankind that spiritual satisfaction. And therefore, religion has a bad name. We say, no. And with people, unfortunately, they throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know, okay, if that's religion, I'll take the devil, right? We throw away religion, we throw away God too. But there's not the solution to the problem there. We have to understand God, He's independent of these religions. And most of the religions, by the way, they've been infiltrated and occupied with ill intent. They're being used for the wrong purpose. So, fortunately, we're in an age of enlightenment. We're in an age where spiritual knowledge is available all over the place. With that knowledge comes responsibility. We have to take that knowledge, apply it in our lives. We'll experience the result, and then we can become that beacon of light, like I was speaking about yesterday, to show the world how to find that happiness, satisfaction, peacefulness that we all desire. Is that okay? Somebody else? Somebody else?
If you be more concrete about this process.
About who?
This process.
The process.
Of becoming
Mhm.
from where we are. So
Sure.
what does it exactly look like, and what changes are we doing further?
Spirit, there's the distinction between spirit and matter is its connection with God. Okay? In other words, any material activity can be turned into a spiritual activity when it's done with the proper consciousness. Okay? What's that consciousness? I want to please God. Now, there's a lot to be said about that, which I'm not going to try to cover in a 2-minute answer. I would suggest to read the Bhagavad-Gita. Or you can, I'll be here this week, or I'll be here for 2 weeks. Come on over to the Hare Krishna temple. I'll be speaking often there. You can find out the schedule. Or we can even have some private discussion if you like. But the basic idea is that we have to connect everything with God. Whatever we do it with the intention. Even sweeping the floor, for example, it can become a spiritual activity if I do it with the intention that I want to please the Lord. God is not absent from this world. He pervades everything. He's everywhere. Huh? But we can't see Him if we don't want to see Him. But if we want to see Him, we can see Him in everything. So that's an art. Huh? It's the art of living, I guess you could say, the spiritual art by which we, by practice and with intention, we can come to that point. So, connecting everything with God, this is actually the secret. And it doesn't have to be my God or your God or this God or that God. Huh? If your intention is, I want to please the Lord, that's enough. Whatever deity you have, however you may understand God, that's sufficient.
My personal role isn't to please God. It is to be the best I can be. And it is a spiritual journey, I know that, but it's more connected to something. It could be another picture of God, which is consciousness or spirit. I will never call it God. I call it goodness. But what I'm looking for is some tool. It could be I'm looking into time banking as one thing, exchange services and connect with people without money. I'm helping an old lady shopping and fixing houses for my friends, no charge, so on and so forth. But the money is into everything today, and especially in Danish society. There's no, the family role is taken over by the institutions. When you get old, you get to an old people's home, and somebody else takes care of you. The family unit, the interconnectedness with other people are all being monetized. And I want to fight that. It's important to me. But do you have something practical? Something I cannot put God in my work or my ethics. I can put goodness there. I can put the need to connect with other people.
Okay, start with that. Start with that, because that's in order to, let's say, it's easier for a person to connect with God when they're in goodness than when they're in tamagun. Okay? It's a stepwise. This is called, in the Vedic social system. Hi, come on in if you like. The Vedic social system is called Varnashram Dharma. There's Varnas. It's staged personal development and growth. And we have to begin from where we're at. Just be honest, you can't start a journey from somewhere where you're not. You have to begin from where you're at. Whatever we are, we go in the direction of God. But that means goodness first. So you're trying to go in the direction of goodness. That step will take you to the next step of coming closer to God.
Well, me myself, I don't believe myself in one certain God either, but I would consider myself as spiritual. And also, so the way I feel like more energy is like being grateful, and that can also be grateful for small things, and so maybe it's not. I say how to get closer. I don't know. No, actually, I kind of lost
It's
it
too nebulous, okay.
a little bit. But about being grateful, I feel something is happening. Even breathing the air, the flowers, and the nature coming out so clearly now, and then you feel something. I don't know.
If I may,
Yeah.
I think what you're trying to express is that you're perhaps uncertain what steps to take to do that, but you have an innate feeling of what's right.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
There are books of knowledge, books of spiritual wisdom, and spiritual teachers who can show us how to progress on that path. That's why they're there. God comes himself, he sends his agents, his incarnations and so on for the purpose of teaching these principles. So they're available to us, and we can just take the next step of becoming. Life is a journey. It's not a destination. All of us, we have the opportunity to make progress in this way in this life. It's up to us whether we're going to go in that direction or some other direction. We have to, generally, what I suggest to people in this situation is you follow your heart. Not your head. We're in a very mental world, and mentally we decide, I should do this, I should do that. And we may operate against our heart or our feelings and feelings. So what you're saying is, it's good, but there's more. Huh? So you follow your heart, you can get there. Now I see what I'm saying now is working up a lot of interest. Let's start here and go this way. Oh, I'm sorry, you want?
Am I on? Yes. I cannot follow my heart because the economic system is squeezing my heart. I cannot follow my heart. I cannot give what I would like to give because it belongs to others. I have given my power, my work power away, right? And others have made a profit on that. Profit, and they are sitting on amounts of money which they can't use. But I cannot take that money and follow my heart. I cannot start good things because everything has to be in this community supported by other donations, gifts, and in the end these donations and gifts actually ends up with money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Following your heart, I mean that you do, means that you can't perhaps do everything. You're saying I can't do that because, but you go in that direction, but to whatever extent that you can. Okay? I mean, for example, you can get a job as a computer programmer. Pays good money, and you can maintain yourself nicely with that. But you hate computer programming. When I say follow your heart, it means don't do computer programming because your heart is telling you this is not for me. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that whatever else you choose is going to pay the same amount, but you'll be taken care of. And eventually, if you follow your heart, two things will happen. One is you'll be happy in what you do, and because you're happy with that, whatever money is coming, you're going to be satisfied. May want more, it may come in time. Who's the example I used to use for that?
I don't believe you. I think you are lying. I think you are a capitalist.
I'm a capitalist?
Yes. I think you really
Closet
are a
capitalist.
capitalist.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay, I think what this illustrates is what you were talking about now. We all take all of our money and put it into the same bank account, and people get a little bit like, oh no, I can't do that. Because I think there's like a general, the problem is the consciousness of this misunderstood Darwinism that everybody's struggling with everybody, so your survival is always at the expense of someone else, is so ingrained in our consciousness. So the problem with greed and people holding on to things and not wanting to give is actually like an anxiety problem, like a lack of trust. So what I wanted to ask from you or anybody else is like how to create more trust and replace the anxiety problem with like how can we trust each other more?
Yeah. We have to test. Okay. In other words, I can't just trust people just off the bat. There's this expression: test before you trust. So we see you don't put everything at risk. We put a little bit at risk. Okay, we won't combine all of our money. Let's combine some of our money. 10% from everybody's paycheck is going to go into the pot. Then how are we going to deal with that as a group? That's an example.
But that would be like tax, and I don't trust the Danish government now. So actually, I don't feel like.
I'm just saying, you don't put yourself entirely at risk all at one time until you find out who you're dealing with. Right? The bank, you go to get a loan, they want some collateral because they don't know you, they don't trust you. So, kind of like that. Anyway, it's part of the process. And what I'm saying is that for this change to take place, we have to become people of good character. Modern society doesn't require anything of us, other than you pay your debts. Otherwise, be whatever the kind of person you want. But if I'm depending on you, I expect more from you. I need to have more from you. So it's a matter of us rising up and becoming trustworthy, responsible, dependable individuals so that we become an asset in the relationship instead of a liability.
I think that I beginning to understand part of this problem, because when I just think about the donations for the lunch or something like that, what I just immediately imagine is about giving what I can spare. But creating a gifting economy is not about giving what you can spare, it's about giving more and leaving some of what is in this independence part of the economy, which we have been valuing a lot. And we have this money and I do what I want. And basically I can not care whether people like me or not. But if we are going to create a gift economy, then we are getting to the point where we are getting depending on each other again and getting, I think I'm getting the point of that it's just, to create a gift economy is not just about economy, it's about creating people who are trustworthy. And we are not in the modern society. We have all this freedom that we have, freedom to say whatever we like. Some of it is lies, some of it is just opinions, some of it is anything, because when everything comes down to the basically in our community, it's about the cross on the voting ballot. The rest is just indifferent. But to get to a point where we are trustworthy, seriously, and that will limit our freedom a lot.
Are we running out of time?
Yeah, it's, sorry.
We're still stuck at 3?
6 to 5, 6 to 3.
It won't become
Okay.
You talked about finding some kind of gratefulness and looking for new places. I've been working with Buddhist philosophy for about 35 years. So I'm not looking for a God, but I'm also looking for something within myself and within other people and other living beings and plants. But I think a very concrete way of relating to one another in another way is trying to get some of our energy that is really trapped in our heads a bit further down into our bodies. My teacher who lived here in Denmark, he was a Tibetan Buddhist reincarnated Lama. He lived here for 30 years and he actually had a Western life really getting to know the marrow and bone of our neuroses and everything going on here because he lived here. He said that he found that when we are in the head and in the centers of the head all the time, it creates a lot of fear. We are always relating to each other in a kind of one-upmanship game. Who is smarter than me? Are you smarter? Am I smarter? What's going on here? So I know it's very banal in a way, but I've been working for about 10 years with actually trying to feel my feet on the ground. This has helped me a bit in getting closer to a connection to my heart. And I think when we were saying also, well, we know all this terrible stuff we're talking about, I know we should forget all these terrible conditions, but I wonder how useful is it to repeat them? I think in a way, could we meet each other and use our mirror neurons in a more inventive way, if you can say so. And I know it's maybe very banal, but I think somehow trying to meet people and start with a minute's silence, where we are just kind of concentrating on feeling our feet and our heart maybe, and then in silence thinking, what would I like to give to this meeting? What would I like to receive?
Thank you. Okay, let's make it quick. We have 3 more before we finish this stuff.
Yeah. My personal thought is that it's important to give all you receive and take trust in that when you give something, you are not necessarily benefiting yourself, but maybe some of that you give will be received and passed on to someone else who is needy. And to emphasize that, if Neil paid for all the coffee today, and out of my own pocket, because I wanted to give something. I don't expect anything in return, and I'm not getting it. But people enjoyed the coffee and made a nice contribution. I think was still and I take my pleasure from the part of the people drinking the coffee. I don't need to. I try to do selfless acts.
Thank you. So,
I just wanted to say, in response to the question about spiritual tools, in response to the question about spiritual tools, spiritual economics tools, I found the so-called paying forward really useful, which means you just see something where you know, hey, I can do something, you know, to help this person, and then you add like a little sticker bump, please do too, you know, like, so you just give someone and ask him, please, you know, like a random person at some point, you know, in your life, please just help him without asking for something. Like an example was like this guy who saw in the street he lived in, like a guy who had like a car and his the wheels were broken. At some point he just had, you know, like he just put 4 new wheels there and said like, okay, I saw this, and you know, you really need to use your car, you know, like, and please pay forward, you know, just like in the future, please do something like this to someone else, you know. And you know, if you start doing this, it's very useful practice to actually experience how when you're just doing this, you know, it comes back to you, you know, like the more people you do this, obviously, you know, like it's just like going away from this taking mentality as well, you know. I mean, it just feels so good if you just, hey, well, this is a present, you know, just randomly. And if you know, like...
payitforward.com or .org or something.
Very simple.
Started a whole movement, this movie. Somebody else? Good.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I'm working with children, mostly refugees coming to Denmark,